California's temperatures are cooling down, but the state is still in the middle of one of the longest droughts in its history.
Let's go to our Studio B where Eric Roberts has more on California's drought and water supply.
Thanks. I'm here with Dr. Emily Orm, Professor of Geography here at CSUN. Thanks for being here. So in recent months, one of the major issues here in California has been the drought and the water issues prevalent to the area and the statewide. Could you maybe go over exactly what's going on with the water levels here and why exactly it's such a major issue?
Water is an issue in California right now because we are entering our third year of below average rainfall. And it's critical that we have at least average, if not above average, rainfall in the form of snow in the Sierra Nevada, which in fact provides much of the water for the state. The way the state water system is arranged, we have snowfall, and presumably we have then runoff during the spring, and the runoff is then captured in a series of canals and reservoirs and aqueducts, where it's moved both across the state from east to west, as well as being moved from north to south. And this is what is so critical right now, is that we don't actually have the water base in which to transport water to the places where it's needed.
Okay, you mentioned to me earlier that you were actually in the Sierra Nevada recently taking some measurements, recording the actual water levels currently, what that the state of California has. Could you possibly go into detail about what exactly you found while you were out there?
Recently I was in the eastern Sierra Nevada in the Owens River Basin, and the Owens River Basin is the major contributor for water in the Los Angeles area. This is for the Los Angeles Aqueduct, which is over a century old. And therefore we are dependent upon water actually from the runoff into the Owens River and then being transported to Southern California. When I was in the Owens River with one of my classes, we were measuring water levels, and in fact the levels of the upper Owens River are critically low now and probably lower than what we have seen in well over a decade.
Okay, this isn't California's first drought, but people are saying this is one of the driest periods in the states since the state started recording rainfall and all that. Could you possibly let us know why exactly this drought is so much different than droughts in the past, and why it's affecting the state at such more severity?
The current California drought is having a much greater impact than the droughts that we have seen in the past. And we have to bear in mind that we have seen droughts on the order of a decade, 2 decades, or even as much as multiple decades long. But before we had such a large population and before we had major agriculture invested in the state, what is critical this time is that in part agriculture depends on water being brought in and transported to what are essentially dry areas. And the second part of it is, of course, with major urban areas and population centers dependent on water, with the bulk of them concentrated in the southern part of the state, which is where we have less water. Actually moving the water here in times of drought becomes a pretty major issue.
Okay, a lot of people that are reporting on it, that have been monitoring the issue, they say that this drought could go on for much longer into the foreseeable future, maybe even a year or 2 more. Could you possibly talk to us about why that might happen and whether or not you think that is a likely outcome to the current situation we're in?
The length of the drought is still unknown at this stage, and we have to put this into the bigger picture. We may have 2 or 3 years of below average rainfall and then have several years of average to above average. But in the bigger picture, in fact, the latter part of the 20th century, the early part of this century, we've seen increasing numbers of dry years. Whether this drought will continue on for a decade or more, there's a recent study out from Cornell University and the University of Arizona, which suggests that in fact we have more than an 80% chance of the drought extending into several decades long.
With the situation the state's in, people are constantly wondering what they can do to save water. So what exactly is some of the big things people can do to really help the situation California is in and really conserve some water?
People can save water on a very individual basis, and it's very clear that by not watering our lawns or developing lawns, by putting in water-tolerant plants or even just total xeriscaping will help. It'll also help in terms of, on a personal level, reducing your shower time, and then recycling water, whether it's through rain barrels or investing in gray water, which can be recycled for non-drinking purposes.
Okay. Again, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to come out over here and talk to us about the drought. I want to toss it back to you guys. Thanks.